It's Financial Smarts Network. Now, here's Andrew.
Welcome to Financial Smarts Network. It's Tuesday again, and we are here for another episode. I've got the guest contributor who's been here before, Angelina Manolakis, with All Things in Order, and welcome back.
Thank you.
Last time we discussed, you were part of the panel with New Year's resolutions. This time I want to dive in a little bit deeper with your specialty and something that a lot of people struggle with, which is clutter. Particularly home clutter, but of course that can, transcend into businesses and other aspects of life. So I'm not a clutter kind of person myself, but I started researching after we did the financial resolution segment, and you mentioned, decluttering. And I'm like, wow. So I started, Googling, and I started seeing these startling statistics of people and how it just evolves into all aspects of life, which we don't often think about, right?
No,
so
definitely don't think about
you
those
are
things.
I guess, can I call you the clutter queen? Not the clutter queen, but the declutter.
The decluttering duchess.
Excuse me, Your Highness. But no, you deal with people, let's just say, who have issues with clutter, some more than others. Mm-hmm. How do people find you? How do you get involved with them? I mean, walk me through the process a little bit about, how did you even get into helping people who have these issues? Because, I, and probably a lot of people, don't think that, we all have something, of a clutter problem.
True. I actually got started in this business about 7 years ago. And it started with an idea that I love to organize, and I just have a natural knack for it. And then part of organizing is getting rid of things too, because you don't necessarily want to organize stuff that you don't plan on keeping. So the decluttering process comes in. So what I tell people is, start with what you don't want, visualize the area and what you're expecting.
Okay.
So it just kind of goes from there, honestly.
All right. Obviously, as you and probably many people, I've watched those hoarding shows.
Yeah, I don't like that.
You don't. I mean, you don't deal with people like that, or do you?
No, not to that extreme.
Okay, so not to that extreme. So you go into people's homes who are just, let's just say, more disorganized in a sense,
Mm-hmm.
Need a little help with organization, whether it's the closet or I guess maybe the pantry, the kitchen area, the living room. I mean, what do you see when you walk in? What's the norm for people who have clutter that you have been involved with? I mean, you walk into a house, it's just the whole thing is messy and you just don't know where to begin situation? Or is it, okay, this is manageable. I mean, we got 2 rooms to work on and, it's a half-a-day project.
Typically, it starts with garages and basements. Those are the catch-all rooms, or sometimes people have a room that's kind of set off to the side, and they call it the dump room. They just dump it. They've got company coming in, so they just kind of grab a bunch of stuff, throw it in a box, and throw it in the room. But then they never go back.
I was going to say, do they ever go back?
They never go back.
So that just begins to accumulate.
Exactly. And then it becomes a monster of a mess. And then they're like, I can't deal with this. It's overwhelming. My life is out of control. I don't have time. I've got kids. I run a business. I do all of these things. So it just keeps
spiraling out of control.
It gets bigger and bigger and bigger, and then they freak out. So what I do is I come in and we tackle it. And garages, they run about a day, but I like to start with the bigger projects initially.
Okay.
Because once the monster has been tamed,
the rest has been tamed. You are hilarious.
The monster has been tamed. The rest of it's really easy, and it's not as intimidating for my clients.
Do you ever have resistance from the same people that invite you into their homes for help as far as getting rid of these things or whatever their stuff is that makes up the clutter? Mm-hmm. I mean, because a lot of it, from what I've gathered, or part of it I should say, is psychological. We just hold on to things and hold on to more things and hold on to more things. And I'm assuming probably people who have a spending problem, of course, really get into an exasperated situation where, the clutter just becomes out of control.
Well, there's a couple of different dynamics to
Okay.
that. So a lot of times, as far as resistance is concerned,
Mm-hmm.
I get resistance when it has sentimental value.
Okay.
So the way I approach that is I let the client know, because I'm not the typical professional organizer that's going to come in and make you get rid of all your special things.
So you don't come in and you're like, this is gone,
No,
that's
I'm
gone,
not a
that's gone.
minimalist. So if that's what you're looking for, I'm not your girl.
I got a friend who's a minimalist, and I was like, hey, I've lived out of my truck when I was broke. I'm like, yeah, there's, you know.
I mean, if you want to start over,
life brings a lot, yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, if you want to start over, that's fine. But I also understand that we hold on to memories.
Sure.
They're emotional triggers.
Mm-hmm. That's why I said, is it psychological?
Yes, it's a psychological, because it's triggering an emotional response from you. So a lot of times I'll say, okay, well, if you want to keep these items, what we can do is we can get a little memory box, depending on how much you have, and then we assign those items that little home, and then if you don't want to keep the items, you can take a picture.
It's not funny. I'm laughing because the way you're phrasing these things in the picture that comes to my mind. I guess I've just got, my mind works in mysterious ways. A little box, and I'm thinking, it's like, are we putting these things in the grave? It's bad.
I mean, we are going to tuck them away, probably in a dark little spot in the closet, unfortunately. But, you know,
I mean, you got to do something.
I have them take pictures.
Okay.
Because they're attached to the memory of the item.
Of course.
They're attached to that emotional response. You know, like your grandmother. You know,
I was going to say, grandma
you
left you
honor
something,
her memory,
or your parents,
bad.
if they're deceased, left you something.
Yeah.
You kind of holding on to it. You don't really need it in a sense, right? But it's the memory.
don't.
Okay, yeah, I follow
But
you
you want to honor their memory,
Sure.
and so we tend to hold on to those things because
Okay.
we are honoring their memory, and we don't want to let go of that, and that's why we keep on to them.
Just on a different note, memories, clutter, and then stress. If you look at statistics and people who have more clutter, it tends to bring more stress to their lives, of course. I guess probably involuntary in a way, because they're not trying to be stressed out about it, but the more they come home to the same environment, to the same setting, they're just more stressed. So the folks you've dealt with in your years as a professional organizer, I mean, do you see that as a commonality where they're just the stress level's higher, anxiety? I've read all kinds of things and doing research on this topic, and it's just mind-blowing with, it's like people higher stress level, eating disorders because of it. And you sit back and you start thinking, you're like, wow, just a small problem that can trigger, into a huge problem in your life.
Absolutely. And I see it, typically I'd say 9 out of 10 of my clients, when I go and I do the initial consultation with them, they just have these feelings, and you can see them, and they start sweating, and they're embarrassed because, they've let it go.
Of course.
But I'm non-judgmental.
They feel that someone's going to come in like you and judge them, even though you don't judge in a sense. They don't know you, so they are figuring someone's going to come in here and just, look at me and think, what in the world is going on?
Absolutely, because not only are they scared they're going to be judged by me, but it's because they've been being judged by their family members, whether it be their spouse, their children. Like, Mom, why is the house always a mess? And, you've got the husband that's like, I can't live like this anymore. This is driving me crazy. So that triggers a lot of problems in people's relationships as well. So then you've got a lot of women, because my clientele base is mostly women, unfortunately, but I have some men too, some single dads out there.
Now you mentioned, let me ask you this, let me to dive into this, because you mentioned men, women, and clients being married.
Yes.
So the norm, I shouldn't phrase it like that, but you're saying you go into someone's home and you're finding that usually it's more of the women that are doing the clutter versus the men.
Yes.
Are they down each other's throat? Because obviously it's impacting, their relationship and their life and the kids, as you said. So, how are they dealing with this? Because usually it takes 2 to tango, right? So in a sense, you got one, whether it's the husband or the wife, who's the clutter, the cluttering up the house with stuff, and then the other one's just sitting back and just accepting it. They're not trying to do something to help the situation.
But it's not necessarily just the women that are cluttering the house. The men are doing it too.
That's what
because as women, we are caretakers of the home, the responsibility falls on us. A lot of times.
Yeah, but what I'm trying to get to, I guess, and maybe let me clarify my point, is that I wasn't trying to associate clutter with just women or men to that extent. But if we were married, okay, and I'm the clutter problem in the house, wouldn't
Drive me
you?
nuts.
Well, yeah, it drives my wife nuts too. So, but what I'm trying to get to is if every day we come home from work, and we're a married couple, and I'm just I'm buying more things or I'm throwing things onto the stack of existing clutter. At what point aren't you going to say as the spouse, like, hey, we have an issue here?
It usually gets to the point of they're almost divorced.
Okay, so that's what
I've actually had clients that have gotten divorced, but you also have the opposites attract. You have one that's really, really hyper organized, and you have one that's just organized chaos, is what I like to call it.
Well, yeah, because you got all walks of life, right? And usually opposites to some extent do attract. In my world, my wife's very quiet, and I'm the loudmouth, so it's just, but fortunately when it comes to clutter, we're both alike and our house is clean.
That's a good thing, for sure. Yeah. You don't need someone like me.
No.
But I will say I have saved a lot of marriages, no joke.
Really?
Yes, I've actually been brought, in when people are they're like, I can't take this anymore. I flew all the way to Washington State.
Wow. So,
yes.
Okay, so these statistics and stuff that we're reading are real.
It is real because it causes more problems than you realize. You start having resentment. There's, depression because you've got your partner or spouse just, constantly the house is a mess and, constantly getting on to you. But you can't keep up with it because the demands that we have every day. I mean, myself, I'm a single mom. Mm-hmm. I run 2 businesses. So granted, my house is very organized and very tidy.
I would hope so.
But, even keeping up with things like that, like everyday life, like laundry and, going grocery shopping and doing my pantry and, just those everyday life tasks, they kind of get in the way. So, and you're running your kids to sports. And quite honestly, a lot of it comes down to just us being really, really busy. I mean, people have lawn people. We have a bug guy.
The world has changed.
Nobody has time for anything. I mean, I don't even clean my own house anymore because now I own a maid service. I don't have time, for one. So, why not have a professional organizer too to keep your home nice and tidy?
Yeah. I will ask you about your time at a different time, perhaps off air, girl. But so you're associating or attributing part of the problem that people have with clutter to effectively lack of time, mm-hmm. work, everything else in life.
Yeah.
Sort of.
Just gets in the way.
Interesting. Money.
Yes.
That's my big subject, of course, always is. And you knew I was going to evolve into this conversation with money. Are the people who are, I guess, have clutter issues, mm-hmm. is it, I don't know how to phrase it, is it cheap stuff that is just all around the house that they're cluttering? Or is it, are they basically breaking the bank in a sense, when you start looking at what all they've had with their clutter in their homes, whether it's the basement, whether it's the family room, the kitchen, whatever the case might be, right? Is there money involved in this sort of stuff? Like when you start dissecting it and laying it all out and saying, this is what we've got, mm-hmm. Have they really been breaking the bank, buying stuff that they don't need?
Not really. Typically, I see a lot of things that people buy at yard sales or Facebook Marketplace, or you have some clients that are attracted to the clearance stickers. So the clearance stickers, the little yellow and red stickers that say, "Hey, buy me, I'm cheap."
What, at the store?
Yes. So, and those trigger people to buy things.
Okay.
Not to mention, we constantly have ads right in front of our face. Like, oh, buy this. I fall for it sometimes. Don't get me wrong.
That's one of the biggest problems.
I love clothes.
Well,
I love, I like to look nice. So
there's nothing wrong with that.
But I do have a rule
mm-hmm.
that I follow, and I think is a great rule for everybody to follow. For everything that comes in the house, something has to leave. And it just helps kind of maintain things.
Be
so
organized.
You go out and you buy yourself a nice new shirt. Get rid of the one that's been sitting in your closet for 2 years that you haven't put on. And it doesn't necessarily have to be a shirt. It can be a pair of pants. It could be a pair of shoes. But you've brought something into the house, so something has to go. Something has to go.
Interesting.
It's a great rule of thumb to live by.
So if I go buy a new suit, you're saying one of my other good suits that I love to death has to go.
It doesn't necessarily have to be a suit, but if it's 3 pieces, then you need to get rid of 3 pieces of clothing.
I can see why some people might be challenged.
They might, but a lot of people, once they adopt it, they're like, oh, my
well, no,
life
because
is
in all
so much
seriousness, I
easier.
start seeing like now, when you're saying your rule is like, hey, I buy a new shirt, I got to get rid of one. So I can see where it's a problem. You buy something new, you throw it in the drawer in the closet, and you don't want to get rid of something. Then you buy something else, and then eventually the problem,
Or you could look at it as a reward system.
What, a reward system?
Yeah, you're rewarding yourself for getting rid of something. You get rid of something, you get to go buy something new. You could do it the opposite.
Interesting. I don't buy a lot of things, and I just, I don't buy a lot of things. My wife keeps me out of the grocery store because the very few times she set me off to buy something like milk and eggs, I come back with 4 bags of stuff, and she's like, what on earth is this?
Because you buy in excess.
Yeah. So I know my weaknesses, and it's always the junk stuff that I don't need to be buying. Chocolate, and ice cream. She's like, what do you need this for? When I come home stressed from work, it's...
so you indulge in ice cream.
Oh, honey, I love ice cream, let me tell you. Oh, yeah. Give me some ice cream.
Do you like sprinkles, hot chocolate?
No. Maybe a little hot chocolate, but none of the extra stuff. I mean, I already feel bad midway through eating something like that. I'm already feeling bad that I'm eating something I should be eating late at night.
Is it sugar-free?
No, it's not the same.
Keto-friendly?
It's not the same. It's not the same. Sugar-free.
So
I mean, what are you going to get
out
out of that?
Fattening stuff.
Hang tight. We're going to get more into the money aspect of cluttering. And do you have enough to start an emergency fund with your home clutter? We will take a break, and we'll be right back with Angelina, and we'll continue on to this conversation.
Today's episode of Financial Smarts Network is brought to you by professional organizer Angelina Manolakis and All Things in Order. Angelina has helped people through many of life's transitions in the last 6 years, such as divorce, moving out and into a new home, the busy moms working full-time, running kids to extracurricular activities, and the list doesn't stop there. It's perfectly fine to need or want a helping hand, and All Things in Order is here to help you, your home, or your business get organized. Contact Angelina today at 404-431-2273 or online at atio-organizer.com.
Hey, we're back from break. So we were talking about clutter. Want to turn this now into our second half of the episode on money, right? So can we turn our clutter into money? So many people have a problem with, if you read statistics, they're startling in our country with even having the basic $1,000 for an emergency fund, right? You go to purchase an appliance for your home these days. Last year, our refrigerator broke after 16 or 17 good years, whatever it was, and we went to Brand Smart with my wife and other places, and just like it wasn't an issue, but I started looking. I'm like, wow, a darn fridge can be $2,000.
Oh yeah, big investment.
Big investment. So yeah, and or your tire blows going to work.
That's a $200.
That's a $200 investment, right? So anything you associate with it takes money, and people don't have those savings. So what I'm trying to basically get to here is to show folks that if you start looking around your home, you will have clutter to some extent, right? Some more than others, as we
absolutely.
discussed. I mean, whether it's clutter we want, clutter we need, whatever the case is, but we have things we can get rid of.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm a fan of donating and volunteering in nonprofits, of course, because I own a charity. So I'm big on donating. But we also have change in tax laws now where a lot of folks aren't able to itemize, and they're not really getting a benefit from donations, especially non-cash donations, goods, right? So that's where you come in as a professional organizer. You're going out somewhere, helping someone. Now, instead of donating that stuff, perhaps, which some people may still choose to do so, I'm not saying you shouldn't, but from the other aspect of it, can someone take their clutter, turn it into cash?
Absolutely.
Cash is king in a sense
It
in life,
is.
right?
And honestly, every little item that you have laying around your house, just look at it as $1.
Just
Got
one?
If you've got 1,000 items, you've got $1,000 sitting right there. But there are things around your house that will definitely fetch you some more money than the dollar.
And hopefully we don't have 1,000 items in our house that can fetch us 1,000. I
You'd
mean,
be
not,
surprised.
I'd love the $1,000, but I don't know about the 1,000 items. Are you serious?
You'd be surprised.
I mean, walk me through some of the stuff. I know you've told me some crazy, wacky stories.
There's some good stories.
You know, some of them are probably X-rated, so we can't air on here.
I mean, 7 years.
Or else we'll get banned off the air. But
yeah, I've seen a lot of things in my 7 years of doing this. Not all good, not all bad.
Okay.
But I love my job, and I love what I do because I help people.
Of course, yeah.
And a lot of times I help them try to figure out what's worth selling and what's worth donating.
Okay, all right. So that's a good approach. Then I mean, I can see that.
Some things aren't worth your time.
I mean, a Gucci handbag, certainly you probably may not want to donate it, but you
No,
could get a lot of money
definitely
for
wouldn't
it.
do that, but you could go on a place called Tradesy, which is for higher end items like
Okay.
Gucci, that if you wanted to sell it.
Your Louis Vuitton
Yeah,
shoes.
stuff like that. I mean, you could sell it on Poshmark too because they have a little luxury, section. But apparently, Tradesy, you definitely get much more money for items like that. But I mean, you might have a pair of shoes. You might have 10 pairs of shoes that you could sell for $5 a piece. I mean,
$50.
That's $50.
Cha-ching, cha-ching.
I mean, so.
Well, because see,
look
it's
at those things.
It's in my world, I always tell people save, right?
Yes.
Save, 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 because not every day is a good day. There's, the economy's not going to be as good as it is today. Perhaps 2 years from now, 5 years from now, whenever, right? Everything goes in cycles, and so a lot is out and beyond our control with the political environment. Each time a new president comes in, new administration, the economy changes. Global things that we can't, as individuals, control. So I'm big on saving and having a rainy day and beyond a rainy day. Like, your emergency fund should consist of at minimum 3 months worth of income to be able to pay your bills, if not 6 months out, right? So that's
We
just,
would all love that.
yeah, of course. We'd love even more. But we got to start with the very basics. When you don't have anything saved up and you're working 9 to 5, or even
Paycheck
if you're a
to
small
paycheck.
business owner, you're paycheck to paycheck, regardless of what you do for a living, it's hard to start that initial savings fund.
It is, but you can start it with your Clutter.
Well, and that's what, that was the whole thing is, it's like, I mean, you go into I've seen these hoarder shows. Of course, certainly most people aren't like that.
Those are extreme.
Those are extreme, exactly. But I start looking at shows like that, and I'm like, wow, you could actually start getting rid of things that are valuable, right?
Absolutely.
$50 here, $20 there. So walk me through. If it's you going into a house where a lady has the issues of clutter, I'm assuming it's clothing, shirts, shoes.
Purses, handbags, suitcases even. You'd be surprised. These beautiful luxury suitcases. Those will fetch a couple of $100s too.
Or put me in a suitcase and ship me on vacation.
Jewelry's huge.
Okay.
And even if it's furniture, people love furniture. There's a lot of DIYers out there that love to repurpose furniture. You could sell a little side table for $20, $30, and
I'm
somebody's
sure, I
gonna
bet you,
paint it and make $50.
with furniture, one of the things is probably like we bought some new furniture a while ago, and we had the original when we first bought our home and renovated it. And a lot of times people just like the company that comes and brings you. They're like, "Hey, do you want us to take this with us?" And you're like, "Sure, do me a favor, right?"
Yeah.
But you could actually
Turn around, they sell it.
Exactly.
That's what they
You can turn that into money yourself.
You can.
Put it on Craigslist or any of these other sites that you mentioned.
Absolutely. Everything. I have some things that I've put on Facebook Marketplace myself.
Well,
for,
it's
$5, $20.
my old saying: one man's junk is another man's treasure.
It is, and it definitely holds true.
Exercise machines.
Exercise machines, don't use them to hang your clothes that you've thrown off in the corner.
I laugh because
Yeah, because a lot of people do that. It's just collecting dust in clothing. So go ahead and sell it. You're not using it. Let somebody else use it, and then that way you can get a nice chunk of change, to set up that emergency fund. Because those could go for $200-$300 depending on what kind of equipment it is.
You look at a darn treadmill that's
Yeah,
$2,000 new.
Yeah.
Should certainly fetch a couple $100. Right?
Absolutely. So there you go. You already have a nice little nest egg started in case you blow a tire.
Yeah. A lot of things can happen in life. I won't even go there, girl. What's on average, right? Let's talk some serious money here.
Okay.
You go into someone's home who has kind of a average clutter mess, we'll call it, if I'm phrasing it right. So on average, out of someone's average clutter mess, what are we talking about? Is it a couple $100 that you can probably get on a good day? What can someone who's looking at, watching this episode, sitting at home, they're watching the episode right now or tomorrow, whenever they watch it, and then they're also looking all around their home.
They're seeing dollar bills.
They're starting seeing dollar bills, right? I mean, how much realistically, and also not, here a lot of people can't afford a professional organizer, right? I mean, people live paycheck to paycheck even in this good economic environment. So if they're going to do it themselves, we have to account for our time.
Yes.
Time is money, in my world and in a lot of people's world, right?
My world too.
Exactly, so time is money. So if you're doing it yourself, what is the easiest way? Are you having a yard sale in the spring or summertime? Or is there a certain way that you can get rid of it with minimal effort and maximum return on investment?
I mean, there's a lot of different ways you can go about it, but you definitely want to start off with what are you trying to accomplish? You need to visualize it, and you need to start with the rule, do you need it, do you love it, do you use it?
Repeat that.
Need it, love it, or use it.
Okay.
If you don't use any of those, then you can get rid of it, and it's okay. And then you kind of say, okay, well, am I going to make $5 from this? Is this worth the time and the effort?
Sure.
Garage sales and yard sales are typically a little exhausting for people, so. But believe it or not, even posting things online can be a full-time job.
Yeah, you got to take a
sometimes,
photo of
especially
it.
if you have 100 items you're trying to get rid of.
Exactly, right, yeah.
So I would take what's going to give you as much more money, more of an investment. So if it's $1, maybe you could sell a couple of different things as a lot instead of just individual. And then, maximize your return on the bigger items.
Gotcha.
Like a dresser or a piece of exercise equipment, yard tools. Believe it or not, people are always looking for tools. And if you're not using
those
it,
things are expensive these days.
Someone's gonna use it. So that's a great approach to take, to start that little nest egg.
Now, you mentioned something earlier. When you go in, obviously, as a professional organizer, you give people the option to either sell or donate.
And then haul it off.
Do they look at you for recommendation, or do you kind of just lay out the foundation and the plan and how you're going to, go through and just organize them? Like, how is it going to work, when you go into someone's home who's emotionally attached to things? First, you got to break off that emotional attachment, and then you got to translate that into some sort of money if that's what they're looking for. Based on this segment, people are going to start watching, thinking, "Hey, I want to turn my stuff into money and hopefully put it in the bank, and I go shop and spend more money for more stuff you don't need." But what do you, from a professional perspective, what happens when you walk into someone's home and they give you, I guess, are you giving them the choice, or you kind of laying it on a table and let them decide, or are you kind of just really trying to do what's best for them in a sense and say, hey, maybe we shouldn't donate, or maybe we should do this or that, to turn it into dollars?
Well, I definitely provide my clients with direction. Do I think that this item is worth the time and the effort and the money that you're going to have to put into it to sell it? No. So more than likely you should donate it. It's not going to take as much time. So you always want to help them just make the decisions, because some decisions are really hard, which is why they need a helping hand. Sometimes it's more of just a motivational support, just a helping hand, because physically they can't do it, mentally they can't handle it, emotionally. I mean, there's a lot of times where, I've gone in and people have had a spouse pass away, or they get divorced.
That's gotta be tough.
They can't let go, or they have feelings that get stirred up with that specific item, but then sometimes they want to set it on fire too. So I try to keep them nice and rational and make good decisions based on their needs.
Okay. Their needs, their wants, what'd you call it? Need, love,
use.
Need, love, use.
Not needing it, using it, or loving it, it can go.
I have to remember that one because my brain works in mysterious ways. Where do you get, if you are going to help them, donate it? Because some people, although despite the new tax laws and they may not get any benefit, some people may say, hey, you know what, I want to, do a good deed, donate it, help someone else, right?
Absolutely.
Or do they pick? Do you have certain charities that you typically work with as a professional organizer who have them on speed dial and come on over to this house and we have XYZ that needs to be picked up?
I usually haul off the clutter myself.
Okay.
It's my insurance policy to make sure it doesn't make its way back into the house.
I hadn't even thought about that.
So, and then I ask my client where they want to donate it. If they have a particular charity that they like to donate, I will take it there. That's kind of my way
you do
of
it
giving back.
you do it more so just so you can make sure that they're actually following
Yes.
through after they've already spent the time to get you involved. You want to make sure, hey, like, yeah, we're really doing this. This is not, we're not going halfway. Like, as soon as I walk out the door,
It's all going to go back in the house.
It's going back into the house.
No,
sort of
I
thing.
don't
Okay.
want that to happen.
Yeah, of course not.
But I do a lot of, I donate to a lot of charities like the foster care system,
Okay.
battered women's shelters.
Very nice.
There's one up and coming that I like to donate to, No Longer Bound, which helps men with addiction. It's Christian based.
Yep.
So they have little thrift stores and among other little entities, which is actually really neat. But I like donating those to those places because it goes back into the community and it goes back to helping other people that need it. There's actually a charity called The Place, and it helps underprivileged families. Maybe they're having a tough time, because there was a point that I was in a situation where I needed some charity.
Sure.
So it's important that
course.
we have those resources. So I try to make sure that other
No, and
people's-
donating is important, obviously,
Yeah.
for all of us who can donate. So I wasn't trying to, minimize it, but
No.
there's a lot of folks who are looking to turn their stuff into cash because they need the
They
money.
do.
They need an emergency fund.
But for the people that don't.
Yeah, correct. There's a lot of people who don't. You might go into a home where, it's really money is no object in a sense, right? So it just becomes more of a function of donating. Working with a professional organizer, as we get close to wrapping up our time, what do people need to know? How do you work? Do you charge by the project? Do you charge by the hour? Like if someone reaches out to you or any professional organizer, if they're contemplating, if they're on the fence saying, man, I have this huge problem with clutter, I really need to get rid of it, it's affecting my health, it's affecting my life, my relationship, whatever the case is, and I really need help doing this. They don't know if they can handle it themselves. They're on the fence about looking at a professional organizer. So how does a professional organizer work, obviously, from the other end of it?
All of us have a little different way
Sure,
of approaching
of course.
it. I like to keep things simple
Okay.
because the more complicated it gets, the more confusing it gets
Sure.
for people. And obviously, it goes based on job too, because commercial projects are a little different.
Totally.
A little more
Yeah,
in depth.
yeah.
But as far as residential projects, it's a daily rate,
Okay,
an hourly rate.
gotcha.
And it makes it really simple across the board for my clients.
If you're there
to
3
keep
hours,
up.
if you're there
They
10
know
hours.
it's this price, and they don't have to worry about any additional incurred costs or anything like that.
Great. Now I think it's a big service because, like you said, you actually haul it off for them.
I do.
There's
And
things
that's
that you
free.
do that you're taking time off their plate where they can actually allocate to more important
And
things.
time is money.
Where can folks reach you, our viewers, if they need you? Of course, as our professional organizer, tell folks where they can reach you. We're wrapping up. It's been a great segment, but
Yes,
I want
it has. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely.
You can find me at Angelina Manolakis, All Things in Order, and I'm also on Instagram at angelina.atio.
and you have that Instagram rocking.
I do.
I got to figure it out. So you got to give me some lessons when we get all set.
Get you organized.
Hey, folks, it's been great. Hope you've enjoyed the segment. We will be back next week on Tuesday at 8 p.m. again with another great segment. Angelina, it's been great having you.
Thank you
Thanks so
for
much for
having
being
me.
here, and we'll have you on again to discuss more important stuff along with Clutter next time. Thanks so much. We'll talk to you soon.